Do I have a motion to approve the April 25th, 2024 board meeting minutes?
So moved.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, motion passed. We'll now hear the Personnel, Finance, and Operations Committee report. Mr. Holt.
Good afternoon, governors. This morning at the Personnel, Finance, and Operations Committee, it was reported of the university's finances. There are a few administrative topics that I'm going to hold until my administrative report later this afternoon. Actuals presented today and on the statements within board effect are as of May 31, 2024. As I told the committee, and I want to disclose to the governors this afternoon, is that our accounting department had a May 31 deadline for all expenditures to be reimbursed for ARPA and MOEXCEL's funded programs. And therefore, the expenditures are represented on the May 31 statements. However, the funds, the revenue from that did not occur until June. So we recognize all of the expense and none of the revenue on our numbers. So when we get to the ending position, the net position at the end of the statements, it looks unfavorable to the institution. But I want to make sure that the governors are aware, and I'll demonstrate on our cash flow statement. Oh, pardon me. There it is. Yep. On our cash flow statements, you'll be able to see how our financials were impacted just a couple of weeks later. Lost my. 2 seconds. Sure. Go to slide 28, Kevin. Oh, no, too much. Okay. Current total operating revenues through May are $46,316,275. This is an increase of $2,077,584 since March 31, the last numbers that the board governors had seen. $1,422,226 since April 30. Since January 31, most of the revenue change has been in receipts of state grants due to the CTAC project. Tuition and fees increased from $28,624,758 by $831,998 to $29,456,756 with the addition of summer school registration. We expect that there will be an additional increase in June for summer school, but it will be a much smaller increase than what was recognized in May. Following June 30, we will conduct an analysis to determine if the 62-38 split that the university uses to apply summer tuition revenue between the current and new fiscal years is the proper calculation. Therefore, we may see some adjustments here before the audited year financials are presented, but expect to miss tuition revenue budget by approximately 4%. Athletic revenue increased by $276,241 since April 30, while housing and food service revenues remained relatively flat, with monthly increases of $51,394 and $32,496 respectively. Bookstore revenue added $31,231, but it will fall short of the $125,900 budgeted for this current fiscal year. As a reminder, the percentage of total shown in the right-hand column is actual to revised budget. I'll go into a little, and then we'll look at, it's a little bit different as presented on an annual basis. Sorry. For operating expenses, salaries, and compensation continue to trend below budget. Salary savings have lowered the revised budget to $173,983, more than $1.4 million below original. With $23,599,069 and salary recognized with 1 month to go, we appear to be on trajectory to end below $27 million once the final faculty contracted salary payment in July is included. Fringe benefits continue to be unfavorable, as has been the trend for most of the fiscal year. Savings have not been expected as a result of health insurance premiums increasing effective January 1. However, it now appears that the actual is trending to be more like the original budget of $10,377,375 than the revised. The adjustments made to date were due to employee turnover. We will conduct a further analysis to learn why there's such a disconnect between the adjustments and actual, and make sure that we do not repeat it for the fiscal year 2025. Supplies and services increased moderately in each April and May at $748,419 and $802,859 respectively for those 2 months, but trending well below the revised budget at this time. Travel expenses increased slightly since March 31 by $243,864. But since academic and co-curricular activities concluded in May, the increase has been much lower. A small increase is expected in June, but we should be within the revised budget limits on our travel expenses. Utilities maintain favorability at only 71.1% of the budget amount. We continue to experience the savings, but have withheld adjustments at this time. We expect to capture these savings in our bottom line at the end of the fiscal year and to offset a few capital emergencies that were underfunded. Scholarships continue to be well under budget because of the lower enrollment, but increased from April to May by a slightly larger amount than anticipated by $612,225 as a result of Pell Grant enrollees. Pell Grants are recognized here as an expense and as a revenue in our non-operating revenue grants line item. Actual expenses totaled $66,371,334 through May 31 on a revised budget of $75,215,061. It is of note that of the original expense budget, we are nearly $10 million under budget from the original, with 1 month to add. For non-operating funds, state appropriations are where they should be. Difference in grants shown here is the city ARPA funds for the CTAC project that will likely fall into the next fiscal year. We'll only recognize approximately $200,000 in this fiscal year. Those funds were available to the university until November, whereas state and county funds had to be spent by July 1. So we prioritized those 2 fund programs over the city. Since that difference is an offset, missing that revenue number does not affect our net at the end of the year, as we did not incur the expenses for the revenue to be reimbursed. The change in capital that you see is due to the CTAC and the various projects in preparing for the Chiefs camp, is the notable difference from the end of Q3. Total non-operating funds as of May 31 are net $16,806,459. And on this slide where you see our decrease in net position is where I mentioned my opening statement that this is caused by an administrative requirement that we had where all expenses were due at the end of May. So we realized that all the expense, but the revenue had not occurred until approximately June 4th through the June 12th. And so when we look at our cash position for the fiscal year, May 31 is considerably lower than where we had been in prior years. But when you consider where we were at June 14th, we quickly rebounded as we collected the dollars that were owed to the university from those reimbursement programs. At the end of May, on June 14th, that number is $10,939,586. For comparison, last June 14th, we were at $9.6 million. So that concludes the report from the committee.
Any questions? Thank you, Daniel.
There was a motion to approve the financial report.
Pardon?
There was a motion to approve the financial report from committee.
Yes, we've got a recommendation coming from the Personnel, Finance, and Operations Committee. Do I have a motion to approve the May 31st, 2024 financial report as presented?
So moved.
Second?
And I'll second.
Okay.
Thanks, Al.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion passed. We will now hear from the Policies and Bylaws Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Policies and Bylaws Committee met on April 22nd. And if you go to the board book, you will see the 2 areas that we discussed, and one that requires action from the board, and the other is just more of an informational housekeeping updating aspect. The first is to the policy on policies that we had put together or enacted as a board about 2 years ago. We had set up a 5-year review for that. And this being the first time we're using that approach, kind of came to our attention that we should look at that a little quicker, just to streamline things, and just a few of the reporting aspects and some of the between recommending departments and how they're ultimately enacted. Nothing of substance is changed in the policy on policies, but it is to streamline it, and with input that we have had from various departments and within the university, we think this is going to make this more user-friendly. As always, our Office of General Counsel will continue to be involved with that and monitor it, and let us know if there's anything else that we need to look into. That is all in the board book, both the red line version of what has changed and then the updated version. So we do not believe there's any board action necessary for that. That's just kind of the update. The other matter is we had discussed at our last board meeting, and that's creating the proposal for the administrators with retreat rights. We had presented that at our last meeting, had originally anticipated that we would, after the opportunity for review and commentary, have a board poll, just various things going on. That board poll did not happen. There was no comments or any recommended changes to that. That's not why it didn't get voted on. We just simply didn't get around to it. And with this meeting scheduled, it was decided just to bring it to the full board for an in-person vote rather than doing a phone poll and having to ratify that. That is, as we discussed at our last meeting, it is incorporated in the board book. Happy to talk about any questions or other comments that relate to this new policy, but the committee is recommending approval for that.
Okay, can you do a brief bullet point on those changes that we're going to
Where
address?
is it in the board book? Do you know?
It's right after my committee.
Committee report, Board of Governors Committee report.
Page 2021.
Number after the financials?
Mhm.
Correct.
Starts out on page 18.
Maybe did it get added later, do you think?
So the red line to the policy on policies was only given to the committee. As
Oh.
part of the committee, but we can add it. I can forward it.
I mean, I don't, if it's not in here, it's okay, I just was looking.
Right, policy should start on about page 20. And that one is part of the report. Lisa, so
I did. Maybe it didn't, maybe it was added after I printed it. It's okay, I'll find it. If it's in here, I'll find it. Oh. Sure, if you say it's in here, it's gotta be in here somewhere.
it was added, something printed maybe before.
Well, that's probably the problem.
It may not
Hmm.
been included, there was.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. You visited about the policy to the policy prior, correct?
So I can talk through some of those adjustments that were recommended with the committee. And do that, if you'll clarify if that's what you want, or did you want to talk about the administrators with retreat rights, which I think all of you have seen from the board. It was shared to all board members on April 30th. And it hasn't changed substantively other than a couple of formatting tweaks. But the content of that was not changed from when you all saw it on April 30th. And it is in board effect, but it may not have going to be part of what you have in your.
But was it in an email sent? The policy originally been in April that you mentioned?
The administrators with retreat rights draft was sent to all board members on April 30th.
Both we've talked about before, correct?
The policy on policies, yes. I mean, we have that as,
Quite a while.
we
back.
approved that,
That's what I
I said 2 years ago. This was, we initially planned that it would be a 5-year review
Oh,
of
okay, that makes sense.
if we had to change any language within that or the way that, I said, that isn't, I mean, it is a policy, it's in the name, but that sets up how all our other policies would get enacted, such as the one that I'm asking for a vote on
Okay, I
today.
understand now.
On the policy on policies, we're not changing anything substantive. We're just trying to make it more user-friendly and appropriate after we've started having some proposed policies submitted.
And apply.
Correct. But no substantive changes to the policy on policies. So that is simply the updated version is in the board book. The retreat rights for administrators is a new policy that is calling.
For two, however.
Correct. We talked about at
That's-
our last meeting, and we were intending on having after because that was the first time that we had presented it
Yes.
and wanted all the board members to have an opportunity to review, to ask questions, to make comments. There were none. We had anticipated doing it by phone, but since we had this meeting getting close, we just
Waited.
kicked it to this meeting. So. And back to Chairman Eversold's, were you wanting the kind of bullets on the administrators with retreat rights policy that we're proposing to enact, correct?
Yes, just a brief highlight.
Okay. And to be probably more helpful with that, I will defer my time to General Counsel Kelly Douglas to maybe give a more succinct and appropriate recap.
Good afternoon, governors. So the kind of the highlights of the proposed administrators with retreat rights. You know, if you'll remember back, the reason for wanting to enact this is that there are, although limited, some faculty positions that faculty step up into administrative roles, or new administrators are brought to campus that have the faculty experience. And so this is really to try to set forth that criteria, those guiding principles for the board to use when assessing the value of having someone step up and serve as an administrator, but recognizing that once they retreat back to a faculty role, that salary adjustment is appropriate now that the job will be different. So the policy, you know, it defines the positions that would be affected based on the job title, the level within the organization. It also, as I said, sets forth some of those principles. It creates kind of a structure for how those mechanisms should flow through the organization in terms of a review and an approval process with ultimate rights for certain positions being, of course, reserved for the Board of Governors. It also reflects back on the process on the back end when a person is retreating and stepping back as to how the different criteria that should be utilized when calculating, if it had not already been set, what a base salary as a faculty member might entail. It also has kind of some information about timeframes for notice to trigger your retreat rights. And there's a place that discusses too, while we never envision this, when they might not be available to a faculty member. For example, in instances of a potential for cause, disciplinary action being contemplated by the board or by administrators. So, any additional questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
The only thing I would
Beeman?
maybe expand just a little bit on there, it's all in the written policy proposal. It does set forth formulas on how salaries would be set, how they would be capped, things of that nature. I mean, we are trying to balance that fiscal responsibility with also our appreciation and trying to set up systems where we encourage our most talented faculty to seek positions of hierarchy positions within the administration here when that's appropriate. So we want to set up a system where we encourage that to retain our own, where we look after our own, and where we acknowledge what those contributions are made. But there are formulas put in there too, so we are balancing it with our trying to be responsible stewards with that. The committee recommends that that this policy be approved, and I seek a motion to adopt the administrators with retreat rights policy as set forth, and it's written in the report in the board book. The final copy is what you are looking at in the updated board book. So the committee recommends approval of that, and I would seek a motion from the board.
All right, we have a recommendation coming from the Policies and Bylaws Committee. Do I have a motion to approve the June 25th, 2024 committee report and policy recommendation as presented?
Yeah.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Just have a couple questions. How do you budget for something like this? If I think it says they can do it on June 1st or January 1st, so how do is there a time frame so that we know this is gonna happen? Because could be something we weren't planning for, perhaps. So how do we budget for it? I guess that's a question. And then it also says that they can be granted or not 10-year, which then means we really have them forever. And how do you manage that from a financial responsibility?
I believe within the tenure part, there is discretion with that,
I mean,
whether they meet the criteria.
so.
No, I'm not questioning whether they should or shouldn't, but if they are, then they're here.
But I
So
would,
that's
definitely.
for the faculty members who have achieved tenure status, whether or not they ever stepped into an administrative role or executive role or not. And
True.
so, think of for faculty who are earning tenure here and then step into an administrative role, that's an easier calculation because we can have all that information. We know what they may have been paid formally as a faculty member. Obviously, you have to look at any adjustments that are appropriate, given how much time has lapsed and changes in market value and the things. With the budget, it's based on vacant positions. So if we know we're going to have a position, administrative position, and there's, working with the business and finance, there's part of that is set forth in the budget that's being proposed for the next fiscal year. So
If you know, right?
if we know,
Yep.
there's always kind of HR maintains information about market value and range. So they have data that they look at for both faculty teaching positions that might be coming available or that have the potential to come available, as well as administrative positions. But I don't know if that answers your question. I mean, it's kind of calculating for any position that you might have or need to.
And we've never had this. I know we've done, oh, I guess I don't know. You've never had a policy like this before?
There's not been, to my knowledge, any university policy that's memorialized this balance and the way to approach this for the institution.
And you felt we needed to do it because,
We did not have any mechanism in place to be able to cite to how we go about doing that.
Right, and if I might, there are certain positions with retreat rights, so we needed a policy. And if someone is retreating back, there's no impact to the budget because it's actually a reduction in what they would have been paid.
yeah, but you got to
Right.
place them.
Yeah,
Right.
but still, I think that would be more of, if you're giving the 6 months notice, you know you're gonna hire somebody, right? You're not gonna be the XYZ administrator. So that will be built in, like Kelly was saying. So it's a retreat rights, just so the governors are aware, is a very common, if not ubiquitous, process in higher education. When you hire someone new in or you move someone to an upper administration, it recognizes that the faculty member, especially if they have tenure, has earned that. And it's a recognition that they have achieved that professional status, which otherwise they would have to give up going into administration. And considering the length of time and work and effort that's required to achieve tenure, it's granted as a recognition of their expertise, efforts, and scholastic and scholarly achievements.
And this policy doesn't mandate this for these roles, it just gives it as an option. Correct?
The policy talks about if someone is determined to do that. Typically, you're not, the folks that would have retreat rights would be the folks going into upper administration. I think there's some categories in there that are listed.
It says executive.
Yeah, so there you go.
I'm just wondering if one of those people needed to be changed positions and they weren't supporting the mission, culture, whatever of the university, are we obligated to do retreating? Or
Well,
we
it's
have it-
based on performance. If someone isn't performing their position, we wouldn't keep them. This is someone that we no longer want to work in an administrative role, but do want or would be willing to accept them in a teaching role.
I get that. My question is, do we have that option?
Yes.
That's all I need to know.
Any other discussion? We have a recommendation. Did we do that? We did.
Get you
that.
ready to vote.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion passed. We will now hear division reports from the vice presidents and other cabinet members. Up first is Mr. Daniel Holt of administration.
All right. Good afternoon again. To update the governors on the FAFSA issues that were reported back, well, multiple times this year, I want to provide a update of where we're at now. As of the start of June, we had received 3,081 FAFSAs compared to 4,509 at the same point in 2023. This is reflective nationwide in terms of a decline. However, the FAFSAs we received as of May 17th, we had sent out 857 first-time freshman financial aid awards, 126 to transfer students, and 1,009 to continuing students. Unfortunately, we haven't tracked historically the number of offers that we send out, so we don't have a comparison to how that performs. We do have a total right now of 1,834 total first-time freshmen that has been offered some type of financial aid, whether or not they have enrolled or committed. These are the individuals that were in our pipeline at some point and then received some sort of financial aid. And then 3,354 total students awarded some type of aid among all classifications. And again, that's does not take into account their commitment or enrollment at the university. I want to recognize the financial aid staff as once our information system was updated due to the change in the FAFSA, all software providers had to update their systems in order for institutions to be able to review FAFSAs and deliver financial aid awards accurately. Our system was updated on May 17th, and within 14 days, they had sent out more than 1,992 aid offers and 1,089 status letters. So they acted very promptly in a very stressful situation that has been going on since roughly December. And the team rose to the occasion when the university needed it most. So I'd like to give a big thanks to the staff in the financial aid department. As of May 24, from outside of Missouri Western, only 42.5% of the nation's graduating high school seniors had completed a FAFSA. That's down 14.4% from the prior year. For Missouri, that rate dropped has dropped by 13.9% to 39.1% completing the FAFSA. That means 60% of the high school graduates in the state of Missouri had not done it as of May 24. This was an application that became live in December. And then for Buchanan County, while we don't have a completion rate, we do have that there has been a 16.6% reduction in FAFSA submitted by county, according to the National College Attainment Network FAFSA tracker. So, again, the numbers that we are seeing are reflective both nation and statewide. I believe there's a little amplification because Buchanan County is down at a greater clip than what we're seeing from a state and nation perspective. Any questions regarding the FAFSA? I'm sure Dr. Foote will speak more from an enrollment perspective, but I want to make sure that I have those numbers in front of the governors. Okay, the second update to provide from an administrative standpoint, and we touched on this a little bit at committee this morning, is the Department of Labor is proceeding with LSA exemption thresholds. This was announced earlier in the spring, and we had hoped that this would be challenged within the court system, as was several years ago under the Obama administration. And there is currently a group out of Texas that has sued the Department of Labor on May 21, but their focus seems to be on the January 1 impact and not necessarily the July 1. So we are proceeding in preparations for this FLSA status changing. We have 19 positions total that will move from exempt to non-exempt as of July 1, because the income threshold moves from $35,568 to $43,888. These positions will become hourly and will be notified as such. Because of the transition, we'll be offering a question and answer session and going over what this means. Moving employees from a status where you have to now track their hours comes off as a negative. You're devaluing them or their role, and that is not at all our intent, what we're trying to accomplish, but we are trying to fulfill the requirements as put forward by the Department of Labor. So we'll be working with them. We are adjusting a vacation accrual leave so that these employees aren't affected negatively from their accrual limits. But we will proceed with that effect July 1. The biggest jump that occurs January 1st, and we're going to have to conduct much more research over the next few months and hopefully report back in October, is the income threshold jumping again from $43,888 to $58,656. This affects 73 positions. And if we were to allow all of those roles to remain exempt, which is not our intent to do, it would have a more than $1 million impact to the university. Half of that applied as of January 1. So a $500,000 impact to our budget for the upcoming year. Again, obviously that's not feasible. So we're going to look to how we would convert some of these positions to hourly. There are exceptions that are allowable for things like teaching. So if there's a exempt staff member who teaches a course or is in some sort of position to teach, and that could be a coaching type position where they're teaching fitness in some way, that there will be some exceptions. But but there's additional research that we have to do in terms of when do recruiters who travel, when are they on or off the clock? When do residents, life staff go on and off the clock? And we just don't have the answers or the guidance to be able to determine that. So we'll spend some time here over the months ahead trying to determine what that impact is going to be. And then anybody that's not in one of those categories will have to learn, how many times are you responding to emails after hours or working on the weekend to get caught up? Because these employees would be hourly, that would be, the overtime restrictions that the university want to have in place could prohibit that. So we just need to understand the full impact, both to the workloads that we carry, but then also what it would mean from a financial perspective. Any questions there? And then the last update I have for you today, there we go, is regarding the CTAC. So we learned earlier this week that Lear will be turning over the CTAC to us approximately July 22nd. So here in the start of July, we are going to proceed with our plan to add 2 staff members to our physical plant team who will be responsible for the operations within the CTAC. The 2 roles are distinct. Obviously, the assistant will support the director, but the director's goal will be to primarily looking at the oversight of the building's activities, the scheduling, the coordination with all the internal and external stakeholders as we think about the chairs of the departments that would have courses over there, the deans, the faculty, making sure that chairs are training faculty, faculty are training their students to make sure that it's a safe environment, and so on. And then doing the same thing for external constituents. So when we think about NCMC or the school district or workforce development opportunities, making sure that all that collaboration and coordination is taking place. The CTAC assistant will then be focusing in more on the critical activities of the day, making sure the equipment is ready for use for the activities that are scheduled for that day, making sure the logs are recorded when their maintenance is coming due, those kind of activities. And so we're really focusing these 2 positions. We'll be turning to think about what that workforce development creation looks like in the future. But the immediate need is to get this building off the ground as soon as we have it from Lear in July, is to get these positions rolling and making sure that we're set up to start off the academic year in the best way possible. It will take us time to get our operations at a mature level where we feel good about things, but we're confident in the team that we have put in place. The good news is that the physical plant staff, they've been involved in this. They know the building probably more than anybody on campus outside, or probably more so than even some of the construction folks. So we have a good team who understands that, they understand the industries that building really serves. And so we feel like we're in a tremendous position to launch the CTAC successfully. That is it for my administrative update.
Any questions or comments? Thank you, Daniel. Up next is Academic Affairs, Dr. Joel Heyer.
Well, good afternoon. It's an honor to be back. First of all, I want to offer an update on 2 administrative searches. First one regarding the position of Dean of the College of Business and Professional Studies at Prospectus is being put together. Also in early July, I'm organizing a search committee to begin the search process in late July, early August, with candidates on campus in early fall. Vice President Mark Archambault is also assisting with the search. The second administrative search, the interim vice provost position, internal interviews were conducted earlier this week, and that effort should be completed by early next week. It was really gratifying to explore leadership and discuss fundamental issues facing higher education with these candidates. And it was just another gentle reminder to me that we have some extraordinarily talented faculty here at Missouri Western State University. 2 of our more critical faculty searches are nearing completion: cybersecurity and computer science. These faculty positions really reflect who we are, in the sense that they reflect academic programs that are linked to our efforts at workforce development. The cybersecurity position is particularly exciting as it relates to CTAC. On a related note, there have been recent discussions with an alum about creating cybersecurity internships, which are very promising. Regarding fall enrollment numbers and efforts, the rate of registration is tracking between 4 and 5% below this time last year. That's not including ECA. In April and May, we conducted our annual registration campaign. In August, we'll also conduct another student campaign, this one focusing on ensuring that students are signed up for payment plans. A wonderful effort to reduce summer melt is the Kickstart program, which is tied or led, I should say, by our Center for Academic Support, so tutoring services. The goal of Kickstart is to provide specific onboarding experiences for first-generation students. It involves 3 cohorts of 25 students each this year. It's a one-day hands-on orientation. From my perspective, it's very innovative. Last summer was the pilot program, and 100% of attendees said they would recommend the program to other college students. We also looked at the retention rates of those students who were in that first Kickstart cohort, if you will, and we found that almost 90% of them retained at the university from fall 2023 to spring 2024. That's in comparison to typically about 85% of our college students. So it's about a 5% increase is what we're seeing there. And so that's definitely an improvement and something that we can be proud of. Finally, an update regarding the Gold Fridays Task Force. President Kennedy asked me to lead this task force. It was an ad hoc group consisting of 12 individuals. There were faculty, department chairs, administrators, staff from various units across campus, and a student also participated. The group met 4 times in May and June. We went through 2 Gold Friday surveys, feedback from respective units on Gold Fridays, and created a list of pros and cons. Currently, I'm preparing a report which will be submitted later this summer, which will include a recommendation for President Kennedy. I want to thank all those who participated in those fascinating discussions. And the reason why I say that in particular, I really appreciated the discussions, and there were many of them that focused on student engagement, on belongingness, student learning, student success, because I would suggest those are the things that we are all about at Missouri Western State University. So that's my report. Are there any questions that you have for me?
Thank you, Dr. Heyer.
All right, thank you so much.
Next up will be University Advancement and the Missouri Western State University Foundation by Mr. Mark Archambault.
Thank you, governors, and good afternoon. You have my report before you in the book, so I'll just touch on a few highlights. From February to the end of April, we saw cash receipts grow by 1.7 million to a total of 3.5 million for the fiscal year. New pledges books this year have also risen to 4.1 million. Driven by strong performance with the Convergent Technology Center, both of these figures represent the highest totals in at least a decade. So we're pleased with how that has been moving forward. A few updates on the CTAC project fundraising itself. The number of local industry partners contributing to the CTAC has now grown to nearly 20. We received 3 new commitments in just the last few weeks to the general CTAC project fund. 2 for $50,000, 1 for $5,000. We are very close to signing the final paperwork to back a verbal agreement for a $100,000 contribution. And we're currently speaking with a new prospective donor about a contribution of $250,000. So work continues to try to raise additional funds for the general CTAC project fund. The foundation is also partnering with the community with regard to the Children's Discovery Center. The foundation is conducting a drive to raise up to $250,000 that would be paid out over a period of 10 years in order to acquire a valuable portfolio of branding opportunities for the university at the center. I'd personally like to thank Governor Landis and his wife Gracie for making an especially generous contribution to help us on our way towards our goal. Jerry Pickman from my office and I will continue to reach out until we've met our goal, which we believe we'll do in the course of this year. Also in my report, I'll just elaborate a little bit on it here. We held our first effort for a new initiative called KC Griffin's Going Places. In March, the foundation began planning a new initiative aimed at deepening our connection with current and prospective alumni major donors in the greater Kansas City area. In May, we held our first event hosted by foundation board members and alums, Kurt Jordan and Mitzi Kluckman, at the Loch Lloyd Country Club. The event went very well and enabled us to connect with several new prospective major donors with whom we're diligently following up. I want to thank Governor Tiemann. The Tiemans came and joined us at that event as well, so we're very appreciative for him showing the Board of Governors flag there. That's my report. I'm happy to answer any questions about anything in the fuller report in your board book.
Questions or comments? Okay. Thank you. Enrollment management, Dr. Foote, please.
Well, good afternoon, governors, President Kennedy, and guests. I'm pleased to report on our admissions efforts and what we're currently focused on, which is our Griffin orientations, which are taking place in June and July, as well as our new student projection for freshmen for the fall. And then what we're going to update and enhance going into next year for recruitment of new students. So I'm incredibly blessed with a team of dedicated staff and colleagues from across the university to deploy the Griffin orientation sessions. This is a critical piece of how we move students from an admitted position into getting into classes, getting their IDs, receiving their first sets of meetings with advisors, faculty, and staff members on campus that happens through the summer. This is a fairly normal process throughout higher ed, and it is one indicator that allows us to project what we're looking for into the fall. So it's a large effort that's organized. Katie Jenkins, as you can see in a little tiny yellow t-shirt next to President Kennedy in that top right picture during one of the opening sessions, is organizing a team of students, 12 students, as well as our entire office staff, about a dozen of us as well as the entire set of service providers across the university to do a resource fair for the students. And it's been an incredibly warming event to sort of look at the new parents coming in. I get to forecast a little bit with some new parents that are sending their kids to university for the first time, what that experience is going to be like. And they share with me during these opening sessions what they're going through and their thought process. And our program addresses the parents' transition from having high school students to having a university student. So it is a holistic day that takes place 11 times each summer. And so far we've had 8 of those. It's been wonderful. I'll show you our registrations through 8 sessions. So in trying to compare where we are from this year to the years past, we are down from a year ago, and we currently have 450 students enrolled. 450 students that have enrolled for classes and 458 that have attended this year. Those numbers trail by 36 and 54 the year previous. So we're trending a little bit behind, but we have 2 remaining in person. And we have an online as well as a flex session, which mirrors the other years prior. These years are, again, 8 sessions and we're measuring equal. So it's not measuring date and time, but we're measuring through 8 sessions delivered. And we have 2 remaining. So our hope is, and our focus is on reaching out through various methods. We have a texting campaign that's working with advising to reach out to the next set of students and enroll a further amount. And we have 118 that are currently registered for June, for the July 9th and 11th session that takes place. That's up 26 students from this time last Friday. So our calling and texting campaign will continue to add students to that. And our session that we have online will have another communications push to bolster that registration amount.
What's the percent of those enrolled that actually usually attend? I mean, if not attend, actually come to class here?
So this enrolled in fall is a historic number of the students that have been here up to that point in 2021, 2, and 3. They came at 513. So 541 attended over the summer for 2021, 513 enrolled. Those are
Okay,
hard
that
numbers.
is the percent.
Yeah,
Theoretically.
right.
You could calculate the percent.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So then what does that translate and what does that look like? What these are year-to-date projections in terms of the number of students that are committed, have what is considered a net go. So people register, people cancel, we call that net go. And these are year-to-year dates, year-to-year numbers, year-to-date. And we're looking at the number of students that enroll in the fall. So these are, as they happened this day, well, this week when I pulled this report, year to date, in the years past. And right now we are behind by a number of, we're behind by a percentage, 562 minus 619. So we're down roughly
50.
60s, yeah,
Just go
60 students.
here.
I want to reiterate that our Go Push and the communications are designed to increase those numbers and improve upon this. And so instead of looking at 562, we are hoping that we're able to yield more than that. This is merely a projection at this point. And finally, what are we focused on? Well, we're focused on the current situation with what we have been dealing with in terms of FAFSA and the situation that exists. We're also fully focused on the future, and our future is looking towards having a refurbished marketing approach where we're starting with our a marketing firm that's been found through an RFP process. It's designed to look at the prospects that exist in our area and improve the communications that we are sending out, and actually have a professional set of people doing that process and making sure that they are converting those prospects, which are a large number, into actual inquiries for us. And then our team will take that process forward. This is a change from what's happened in the past. What was in place was an in-office staff that was focused on the marketing piece. And what we're looking to do is professionalize that outreach to make sure that we are reaching all of the students that sit within our funnel and within our zone, and increasing the professionality and the reactiveness to what are moving forward with prospects that are moving forward in their interest cycle. Further, we have a refined recruiting focus, and that is to look at how we actually are using our people on the ground that are recruiters that are out in place to be able to talk about the academic programs that we actually have, to combine that with a message of employability and really double down on the message that we have some excellent academic programs that are worth taking part in. We're also going to look at the competitive growth areas. So for Kansas City and Kansas as a state, those are growth areas on the western side, eastern side of Kansas, and we'll look to be more competitive in those areas and have deployed our recruiters to those areas in greater strength than what we have in the years past. We're also looking to demographic issues or demographic factors, where can we look at specific populations within those growth areas and target marketing messages to them. Finally, further, we're going to increase our marketing of the academic partnerships. So what those would be is we have various articulation agreements that exist with NCMC. We have Metropolitan Community College as well, that we're going to begin talking to the public about the partnerships that exist in the network of academic opportunities that are presented to us. CTAC is a perfect example of how academic partnerships with local entities can drive interest in a university. So we will be increasing that part of it from a recruitment standpoint. And finally, within our process and within the recruitment process, we're turning some of our messaging around to be much more student-centered than in years past. This means that we're speaking to personal attributes of students when we send out communications. We're able to use our technology to actually create, instead of a blank letter to every student, more personalized messages to those students, so that we can begin to recruit along their interest lines at a better clip than we have in the past. So that concludes my report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions or comments?
Jeff, I wonder if you could maybe clarify a little more what the search and marketing firm is going to do. And from my perspective, what I'm trying to clarify in my mind of what the role that new firm will play, because we did have some problems in the past when we farmed out that type of searching for students. And a couple of the issues that came up were one is it seemed paced that some of that our firm was doing of just put our peer, one of our peers' names in there for ours, and we kind of got the same product. But they also focused so much on, and maybe it was the criteria we had on how we were selecting them, but it was to get students on campus, but we were bringing in students whose likelihood of success was not good. And we had massive turnover. So everybody was really excited when incoming freshmen spiked, and then our retention was really a challenge with that. So if you could clarify kind of what role this firm will play in that.
So through the process of selecting the company, we had that past history in mind as to what their outcomes were. And we asked questions designed to say, how is it that we're speaking to the students that want to come to us? And so each of the companies that presented in the RFP, there were 5 that presented written, 3 that presented in person. The approach that was ultimately chosen was a provider that's been in the regional public space before, so understand and has a very small client set, versus the other presenter that you've mentioned was one of the 3 finalists that we did look at, given their professionality. We wanted to have a more of a personalized approach that understands what we are doing here and who our students are and how we're going to reach out to them. So with that exact metric in mind, because that was the story that was told, is that we spent a lot of effort and a lot of wheels were turning to yield. We sent out way more applications than we ever had before, but we didn't even yield those. And then the ones that came, didn't matriculate and didn't follow through, or they were numbers. And what we're trying to do is run the balance between making sure that we have a thorough approach, which includes making sure that we communicate into places we're actually going to be sending our recruiters. So the new company is much more focused on using our recruitment staff as the final sales piece, but we're going to communicate into the cities, the locations, the states where our recruiters actually go, and make it a more personalized approach. So our search parameter for students will be as rigorous as it has been in the last few years. So we'll be looking at students that have a minimum GPA level when we're going out and purchasing names. We're not going to be choosing, ones that have less than a 2.0. Some of those find their way in to the recruitment funnel, but for the most part, our approach to what type of student in the academic preparation will be the same. It's just going to be a much more personalized and thorough approach than before, with the idea that if we're bringing them here, our staff and faculty, like Joel had mentioned with the Center for Academic Success, we have the support in place for all the students that are here so that we do retain them. We don't want to have that happen again.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Foote.
Thank you.
Next up, we'll have a report on marketing and communication by Ms. Tama Wagner. And welcome.
Thank you. I probably should have checked to see if I know how to run this. Well, good afternoon, governors. I was asked earlier this week how long I've been with the university, and this is my 10th week with the university. And I can tell you, it's been so nice to onboard with the UDL engagement decision already made, because it was easy to hit the ground running. And so kudos to the group that chose UDL. As you might imagine, in my career, I've worked with a lot of marketing agencies, and I find them to be very engaged and very professional. Look, it works. Yay. So this is the process that we're using in this rebranding effort. You do have my written comments in the board book, but I did want to just highlight the brand market piece of this. So it's been about 6 years since the university has undertaken a market brand analysis. And this is the process that we're using. Top, the environmental scan. We've completed that process. We're on the internal analysis, and Kent and I got an email today that part is finished. And so what will happen at this point then, UDL will take the external scan, the internal information, and historical data, and actually come up with a plan. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Dr. Foote and Kent for allowing me to interlope in their areas of expertise and work with them on this. And so then UDL will come up with a strategic direction and a plan. And so then we'll develop those goals through that. So if you think about that, and Governor Tiemann, this probably gets to your question. So in politics, you develop a plan to get voters. In healthcare, you develop a plan to increase patients. In manufacturing, to increase buyers and revenue. And so that's what this structure is designed to do. How do we go out into the market and find students that should be coming here? And so then that plan will then be overlaid with what Dr. Foote is doing. So when you ask that question, so that information will be front loaded with the agency that he's using to say, these are the messages that work. These are the students that you should be targeting. And so it's a combination of both. If you think about it this way, in Dr. Foote's agency or area, he has the science of marketing. So How do you push people? How do you acquire people? How do you get people here? In Kent's shop, he has the art of marketing. So how do you design the ads that relay that information? And so through this, I think a lot of people think when you're doing this kind of market analysis that you're just asking, what are your perceptions? But you're also figuring out what are the messages that move people to make a selection with us. And so, as I mentioned, we have finished the first 2 steps in this. The UDL calls their focus groups discovery sessions, and I know some of you did participate. I stood outside the door while Kayla and Lee participated. They don't actually like the client to be in the room because they don't want us to argue with the participants. I do have a funny story. When I was running a state treasurer's campaign in about 1994, long time ago, we were in a focus group, and my candidate at that time was a CPA, and she thought that was very important, and she wanted everybody to know she was a CPA. And this poor woman said, well, that doesn't matter to me. Anybody can be a CPA. And my candidate stood up, and fortunately there was a 2-way glass. So she couldn't actually reach her, but that's why we're not in the room when we participate. So we did 3 virtual focus groups in June, had about 40 participants, alumni, donors, and community. And thanks, Mark, for providing that alumni and donor list. This is really high level and very preliminary, so don't fall in love with any of this information or hate any of this information, because it is likely to change and be massaged. So lots of positive from those focus groups: high quality, affordable institution, great community partner. Those are the kind of things we want to hear and embrace. Of course, we do have opportunities. A lot of our opportunities center around, we just need to tell more people what we're doing here and share the information about what we're doing. And then, of course, the recommendation, share the good news about all of the programs that we have here. So our next steps for this, in June, we'll finish the collection. We just finished the surveys. We did survey high school counselors, community members, faculty, staff, current students, yes. So I'm really excited to see the survey data from high school counselors, because I think that's going to provide a lot of insight, and it's always good to check the temperature with your faculty and staff. Then in July, UDL again will take all of this information to come back with a recommendation. We have asked them to work on an abbreviated timeline, so we can have the information to Dr. Foote to begin the July or the next cycle of enrollment. That's one thing that I have to get used to, is the next cycle of enrollment. And so with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions about this process or anything else.
Questions or comments?
Pam, I appreciate your report and everything able with your esteemed background and connections within the community and whatnot. I thought that the focus group, I really didn't have any idea what to expect, and thought it was way more positive than negative, and virtually everything that even would fall into a negative category was constructive criticism and things that just areas that we could tweak a bit with that. But I would encourage consider that be some type of, in some format, a continuing process, just the question and answering and having the dialogue, because it seemed like, at least to me in the one group, that any of the concerns or questions, even perceived negativity, was just out of not knowing. There was the comments about, how do we get the information out to people? And I know that's what you're working on, but just everyone wants to feel like they're part of it, where we have a lot of stakeholders and we're all defined different ways of how we become a stakeholder. But some of the folks that reached back out to me, they just appreciated being heard with that. And I'm confident you've heard similar responses. But to the extent we can have some format of this, just continuing the dialogue, we're not going to do everything everybody suggests, but there are some things that maybe we don't think of in some other perspectives. And I just think people came away, I know I came away feeling better about it. Kind of that shared mission. So, I applaud you on those efforts, and the more we can keep that going, I think is great.
I agree with Lee. I was impressed, and it was very positive. And it tickled me that these people that were bringing up these things, but that they were giving Elizabeth a lot of credit for what she's doing in the community, trying to bring us together. And that was good to see that.
That is good. Now, I should also say I was remiss not to recognize Governor Norton, because a lot of the things that I'm talking about here are in part things I learned from Governor Norton when we worked together on we've done this a number of times together. And as we were discussing over lunch, if you don't ask people the questions, you don't get the information, and then you can't fix the situation. And so, yeah, absolutely. These are the questions that we should always be asking, because then we can address where we need to be and figure out some things that, Dr. Foote was talking about. Why are our numbers down? How can we improve those? And so thank you for that input. And I, again, need to thank Kent Heyer. He's been very instrumental in this. Because I'm so new at this, I don't know anybody. I'm not really sure how to work systems yet. And all I say is, hey, Kent, can you? And it's remarkable. It's just done. Thank you.
Thank you, Tama. All right, up next will be athletics report by Mr. Andy Carter.
Good afternoon, governors. Good to be with you again. There's just tremendous momentum in our area in the athletic department as we move into the summer. And as you know, if you watch any television, this landscape in college athletics continues to change at a rapid pace. And we kind of get the next wave after a decision's made at the higher level, then it kind of folds down to us. But I can tell you that we are resolved to remain steadfast in our values, our culture, and our mission. And in our athletic department, our mission is classroom, competition, and community. And in that regard, let me just tell you a couple of things kind of as an end of the year assessment in those three areas. We just recorded the highest departmental GPA on record with a 3.381 for the department. In the competition, we recorded the second most team wins on record. Now, 2015 and 16, they beat us by maybe a dozen or 10 wins. And I felt like we kind of left some of those out there this year. We could have had that. But the combination of those two things is pretty powerful. And then in the community, we registered over 4,000 hours of community service and engagement from our department. So I feel like we're just really tracking hard on being who we say we're going to be and doing the things that we say we're going to do. Also, one last thing I would add as a little bit of a metric, we changed up a couple of things toward our Gold Coat drive this year. And it's really interesting what intentionality can perform for you. So last year, we had 277 members of the Gold Coat when it all washed out. And that's down from maybe an all-time high, but kind of on a rise back up a little bit. We actually made more money with fewer members last year. But the goal is engagement as well. And so what I can tell you is we're not even to the new fiscal year yet. And we have 277 last year. We already have 219 members, and 70% of the revenue is already committed. And we haven't even started the new fiscal year. The other exciting part of that is that we have 136 people who were members last year that we have not renewed yet. So we believe we're going to crest over the 400 member mark in this next year. And I think that's really exciting. And I would attribute that to leadership from Ryan Menley, from our Gold Coat board, and just a lot more intentionality. The revenue is really important, but the engagement is just as important. And so that's my verbal report. You have my report in front of you. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to address them.
Questions or comments?
I would just like, from attending the dedication that you had for the nutrition center, that Governor Norton was instrumental in, and with her generosity and a great legacy for your family and certainly Bob with that. But that's a wonderful aspect being added to our student athletes, and you just see a lot of excited young people there that just want to. I know we have, we certainly appreciate it, but we very much need to be on record of our public thanks
Absolutely.
for one of our leaders stepping up there and filling that need. And
I think Andy, I mean, he recognized the need. I mean, nutrition is a very important part of performance. And that, I never can remember the short guy's name. I'm so sorry.
We'll just call him Coach Fears.
I can't get his name in my head for some reason. I mean, obviously he's instrumental, which also he was brought here for that. So I think recognizing, I mean, obviously lots of things are important in athletics, but for sure, if you don't eat correctly, or train correctly, it's going to be a little.
And
difficult.
it's a game changer, and we really appreciate what Lisa has done in that regard. One of the biggest kicks I get is when we start doing, and Ryan Menley is so talented in putting together all of the different interviews and the video, and that goes out on social media, and then I get friends of mine that are at the Division I level, and they're jealous, and that, I think that's just a lot of fun on our end to say, hey. And what we know is true is in this conference, that stuff doesn't give you an advantage. It just helps you keep up. And so we're continuing to look at ways that we can just be, we're young people are looking at a purview of schools in our league, and they choosing us because we're looking out after their experience and their health and their development, and they'll be best versions of themselves when they leave. So thank you, Governor Norton. That was huge, and it will continue to play a part over the next few years.
It's not one and done for sure.
Yeah, I did see that on the video, so I checked that in my brain. So we'll be back. So anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. We'll now hear from our student governor, Mr. Garrett Jackson.
Well, good afternoon. My report's fairly short. With it being summertime, I'm excited to be on summer break. It's a good relaxing time to just prepare for the upcoming school year. From the students I have talked to, they're again taking advantage of the break, and they are excited to come back to school and continue learning, growing with friends, and preparing for a new career, for careers they have ahead of them. So just thank you for the work that the board, the administration, and the president's office does to keep it running even over the summer months.
Any questions for? Thank you, sir. Now we'll have the report of the president, Dr. Elizabeth Kennedy.
One thing, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I noticed Dr. Goltra's report was in the,
He's not on the agenda today.
okay, very good.
Yep.
I see it back there in the audience. I didn't know we missed you.
We are very observant board members. Notice that. Yes. No, that was deliberate. So thank you though for checking. And thank you, Chair Eversold and Vice Chair Norton and governors. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I'm here to talk a little bit different board report than I usually do. So what I want to share with you today is that we have started a new communication series from the President's Office, and it's called Moving Forward. I want to bring this effort to your attention because I need your help in sharing this information with the community and within your own circles of influence. So today I'm going to cover 3 topics. One is reinforcing our direction. 2 is the current chatter in the community. And number 3 is next steps. So as you know, in the spring of 2020, Missouri Western went through an extremely challenging process of retrenchment. We were presented with a very real financial crisis, and it was either make difficult decisions or face a slow and certain death. And through retrenchment, we eliminated many programs. And these decisions, these very, very difficult decisions were data-driven. And again, it was a very painful, difficult process. But these were also decisions that needed to be made. And overall, we know that the programs that met the state's threshold of 10 graduates per 3-year rolling average were held harmless. In reality, program eliminations were overwhelmingly those cultivating either limited enrollments and or a very limited number of graduates per 3-year rolling average. And coming through this retrenchment process, we also aligned our programs to match our region's most pressing workforce needs and what the state, through its workforce development efforts, is asking for, namely, more nurses, more teachers, more social workers, more accountants, more biologists, more law enforcement professionals. In addition, we're also providing another 30 undergraduate majors, including the fine arts, ranging from music to cinema, which also connects both student and workforce demand. And now with CTAC, we'll enhance our areas in manufacturing and construction engineering technology and cybersecurity. And we also continue to offer 10 pre-professional programs, such as pre-medicine and pre-pharmacy. This is who we are now. The early feedback that we heard from Tama about the UDL discovery sessions is that we need to be sharing this current version of ourselves and what it means for the community and our future students. And I want to assure those of you around this table that your efforts to support this strategy and this direction are finding solid roots among our various constituencies. Secondly, I want to uplift our faculty. Teaching in higher education is a rewarding path. I know myself because I was an instructor for 17 years. But each member of the faculty is to be commended for embracing the journey of lifelong learning, for innovating and improving education, and for making a difference in our students' lives. As Missouri Western faculty, they've chosen to be intentionally focused on student success within our applied learning missions. They've dedicating ourselves to our students' achievements and towards elevating our university. Now, we currently have 134 FTE faculty positions, with 10 not renewing annual contracts for the next academic year, and that number also includes 2 retirements. So if you're doing that in percentages, that's a faculty turnover rate of 7.4%. And this has been described on some social media outlets as a quote-unquote bloodbath. So I checked with the College and University Professional Association for Human Resources, and the national average faculty turnover rate in higher education is 8.3%. So personally, I don't think our bath is bleeding. While it's always hard to leave colleagues leave, and while we all might get a little nostalgic and long for the past, turnover is a fact in higher education, especially when you consider the changes we've made at this institution. But let's be clear. This year also marked our lowest turnover rate in faculty in the past decade. So where do we go from here? As a member of the Missouri Western State University family, we all know that every day is an exercise in embracing new experiences, thoughts, and ideas. And currently, we face a crossroad in higher education. We are being called changing demands of the 21st century from many different stakeholders, our students, our employers, our elected officials, while honoring the traditions of our past. And for us at Missouri Western, that means our technology-based and professional degree programs require an even sharper focus on our mission of applied learning. As one of Missouri's 3 open access higher education institutions, it is vital we continue to serve as an institution of excellence in academics and career preparation. We provide every single student the opportunity to take what they learn in the classroom and apply it in real-world experiences and situations. And according to Hanover Research, the #1 strategy for growth at 4-year universities is movement toward career-focused learning connecting to future jobs. The #1 strategy. And that is precisely what we are doing at Missouri Western State University. The internships, the practica, the research, the community service our students participate in will prepare them for workforce and help ensure their future and their future success. Now, for many students, the primary benefit of a college education is the promise of a better career, a better life, right? In a recent Tallow survey, 60% of students said they would prefer to study in a program that is more applied and more career specific. This also relates back to students' concerns about cost and debt. So here at Missouri Western, we continue to affirm our commitment to a low-cost, high-quality education, a degree that puts our students to work. Our challenge, as always, is to attract students who are seeking this kind of education, to retain those students, and to help them graduate, to foster a culture of mutual respect and mission focus with our faculty and staff. And finally, as we've heard earlier, to openly communicate all that we're doing with this community that supports us and views us as a high-quality, affordable institution and an important community asset. And with that, I am happy to take any questions from the board.
Questions or comments?
I would, Mr. Chairman, I know it's in your report, but I would like to at least have the public acknowledgement and appreciation for you being elected by your peers to be chair of COFI. That it shows the level of respect that your peer group has. I mean, that is all of the public universities and colleges in the state of Missouri, with the exception of the University of Missouri system, right? I mean, so
Correct.
that has Missouri State and
Yes, and it also has State Tech, which is a hybrid 2-year degree, but not quite a university.
right, and that's not just a pass around the leadership of that. My understanding is the first time I mean, as an institution, we remember that, but the first time that Missouri Western president has been the chair of that highly regarded and influential peer group, and that is certainly validation and public acknowledgement of how you're thought of within your peer group, and appreciate the leadership and respect you bring to the table.
Thank you.
I couldn't agree more. And it's not only that, but in addition, it's kind of a gold star on the university in general to have that position filled by our president. So thank you, Dr. Kennedy. Okay, next is the report of the chair. So getting right into it, I'm now reporting that Governor Woolman has submitted his resignation to me, effective immediately. Bob began his term on the board in December of 2020, during which the university was dealing with several challenges, including the pandemic and a state of financial emergency. And this has not been, nor is it now, easy work. But Bob was on the board, as all of us were, and he worked diligently. Therefore, on behalf of the entire board, I'd like to extend our deep gratitude to Bob for his service and his dedication to Missouri Western State University. We're very appreciative of his time and energy he has devoted on the board and also on our Missouri Western State University Foundation Board, and joining our efforts to make the university a better, stronger, and sustainable institution. And along with that, he has the same credentials for about every aspect of the community. So now Bob is an alumnum. Bob is an alum. So as we say, once a Griffin, always a Griffin. Alum or aluminum. And we know his support for Missouri Western State University won't waver. He is dedicated to this university. So please join me in showing a sign of appreciation. Now I'd like to share a very positive encounter that I recently had. I was walking down the aisle at Menards one day this week, and I met a former neighbor of mine who is a sophomore at Missouri Western State University. last year, he was a freshman at some school up north on 71 Highway. And he wasn't happy up there and he made poor grades, just didn't like the environment. So he transferred here. He made the dean's honor roll last semester. He's happy. His grades are up again this semester. He's enjoying college. He's happy, walked down that aisle up on his toes. And he showed me his acceptance email on his cell phone as being the third student accepted into the CTAC program this fall. And he was excited. And also he said that he was proud to hopefully be in the first CTAC graduating class. So to me, that just spoke volumes about what we as the university is doing here and particularly with the CTAC program. So I think sum that up is just well done. Okay, it's now time for the election of officers for 2024 through 2025. I have received the recommendations from the nominating committee, which are as follows. Their recommendation for chair is Lee Tiemann, vice chair Bill Grimwood, treasurer Daniel Holt, secretary Betsy Wright. Do I have a motion to approve the nominating committee's recommendations as Lee Tiemann, chair, Bill Grimwood, vice chair?
I'll second Ben. Al's jumping again.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion passed. The duties of the newly elected officers shall commence July 1st. The next board meeting will be on Thursday, August 15th, 2024 at 1:30 in the Spratt Room 214. Not in this room, but Spratt 214. Is there any old business? Any new business to bring before the board?
Mr. Chairman, I have a bit of new business with that is having served with you for the entirety of your tenure on here. I certainly believe wholeheartedly the university and this board are better for your leadership and for your commitment and involvement. What is especially poignant with you is your level-headedness and even keel, how you have led all of us, and it's been a pleasure to serve under you, with you, side by side with you. I know you are not going anywhere, but we just do want to, I want to, and I believe the board as well, want to certainly show our appreciation for everything that you have done in your leadership role for multiple years. And a lovely photograph of the clock tower and like that.
This is perfect. It says it's 7:45. That's my bedtime. Am I right? Thank you, and I can say in all honesty, it's been an honor, pleasure. I'd like to say that we did everything right, but I think we did more things right than not. So I appreciate all the board members, board and administrative staff. Dr. Kennedy. And I always want to thank the audience for coming to the board meeting. That's me very important for your insight to us, the understanding, and it just shows that the university community is engaged and cares about it. Thanks to all of you. And as far as your comments about me being level-headed and what was the other term?
Oh, the list goes on and on.
My fifth grade teacher told me that was mediocrity and gave me a D for being that way.
Oh, you've grown.
But thank you. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. And I'm happy to turn things over to the new chairman.
Not yet.
I know, effective July 1st. I will call you that day. There being no further comments or questions, a vote will be held to close the meeting pursuant to Missouri Statute 610.021, sections 1, 2, 3, and 13, to consider legal matters, real estate, personnel, and other matters protected by law. Do I have a motion to close the meeting?
I'll move.
A second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? We'll take a short break and reconvene in closed session. Thank you.